Is it just right there?
You better just, this is it, Maya.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Everyday Intuition. I'm Brandon Russ, and this week we have the funny, the talented, the artistic, the mother, Gail Buggy. Gail, how are you?
I'm great. You're not started, are you?
Oh, we've been at it for a few minutes now.
Just go. Are you done?
Yep, done. Sorry.
It's not enough that I wrote your college essay for you yesterday, is it? Just kidding. It was a collab.
Okay, Becky. So, oh my God, let's just start there. Aunt Becky, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Really?
Yeah.
Kind of like for writing essays for her daughters?
Yeah. And you know, it's funny because that's obviously guilty, right? But there's a lot of ways that the whole system is stacked against people. Like I basically am my daughter's college advisor, but all these people can hire college advisors. They're professionals, people who help them with their essays. My daughter, all she's got is me, right? I got ADD. I got a lot of issues. It's just, there's all these levels of, it's not right. It's got to be more of a level
Welcome to Connecticut Community College, and there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
You know, isn't it funny that like when our parents suggested community college, they were like, and there's nothing wrong with that. What they were really saying is that's actually affordable.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden you're just like, boy, you know what? I'm going to give my kids something that they never had. I'm going to make sure that they, how much? Yeah, let me write that for you. Make sure you do it right, you silly dummy. Anyways, I'm not saying that your daughter's a dummy. Gosh, that was terrible.
No,
I can't edit that out, just like I can't edit out that cat in the background. So anyway, so listen, welcome to Everyday Intuition. Let's get on topic here. Boy, our pre-start really kind of started out of the gate. Not anything new for both of us, but here we are.
I didn't know we were really taping. Are we really taping?
Yeah, I mean, you see that like red button up there on the top?
Mine's, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, great. Awesome.
You're new at this, aren't you? How long have you been in entertainment?
An hour now.
An hour?
No.
An hour. Yeah, because you like logged on to this like, you know, we're 11 o'clock local, but like you logged on at like, you know, 8:45 and you're like, I've got like 2.5 hours of you fixing your eyebrows and then making sure your necklace is in the middle. It's actually quite riveting. It's terrible. Anyway, so why I think you're such a great guest is, first of all, not only your sense of humor, but also within your journey. You've really kind of stepped into this part of your journey where, you know, you get to a certain age and you get to a certain point in your life, whatever age you are, age doesn't really matter. I know. 29? Why do you lie like that? You know you're 26.
If you can drink, I can drink. But you're right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Carry on.
Mine's peppermint something.
Oh.
Schnapps.
Nice.
So you get to a certain point and you take a step back and, you know, tell us a little bit about your journey. I mean, I see the paintings behind you, which are fantastic. I'm actually going to do some cutaways of all the, you know, pictures, you know, great pictures of what you've drawn, what you've painted. I almost said colored because you do colored by numbers. So what brings out the creativity in you? Let's go there.
That's an interesting question. What I can tell you, I don't know what brings it out, but I remember, it's funny because I remember being a little kid and there would be certain days when I would have this urge to draw or create, and it was like almost painful. And at that time, I didn't have the techniques for like the feeling. So I just remember it being very sort of frustrating. So I don't know what brought it out. I just think it was always in me. And then as I got old, sorry.
Do you think it lays dormant for a time?
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes out, I mean, I find this a lot with people when I connect with them.
Yeah.
And they start taking classes or whatever. A common thing that I hear is that they like push down their intuition. And I think we do that with intuition. I think we do it with creativity. I think we do it with our muse. You know, I mean, we're joking around, and for some people they're going to roll their eyes and be like, where is the structure? And then I say, have we met? Anyways.
Exactly.
doesn't it also kind of become something where it's like when you finally hit a level of freedom, I alluded to age, but it really doesn't matter with age. When you
Yeah.
hit a certain level of freedom where you're just like, listen, bills are paid, 10 fingers, 10 toes on the kids, everybody's happy. This is kind of me time. Walk me through that. Like, do you feel like you were able to tap back into it? And what are the types of things that you did to get going with it again?
Yeah. So my kids are still 14 and 17 and still need me a lot. But you're right. There's sort of an awareness that it is a little bit more, I don't know, there's something about me, like I feel like I've spent sort of like a lot of women do, feeling like all the stuff you have to do. And I've sort of gotten back to me and realize that I will literally be a better mother if I take time for me, if I take time for meditation, for intuition, for my art. And
Yeah.
it's actually gotten to the point where if I don't take time for that, I'm horrible anyway. So it borderline abusive. So, you know,
Let's have a conversation about self-speak for just a moment. Gail, what do you say when you look in the mirror? Well, when I'm done berating myself, I light up a cigarette. No. Yes. But don't you think though that that's kind of all encompassing? And it's funny, like even as you're saying, women and whatnot. I mean, men go through the same thing. Although when men kind of go through their breakthrough period, it's known as a, midlife crisis. Well, it's not a midlife crisis; it's midlife awareness, where all the obligations and all the things that you did in the first part of your life where you were like,
yeah,
I need to be the guy and I need to drink this much and I need to, go crazy and, gamble and be the crazy guy in Atlantic City and blah, 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 all this stuff.
right.
And then you get to a certain point where you're just like, all right, it was fun, but it was dumb. Like, and you look at like where your obligations are and what really matters to you. And at 14 and 16 years old, they don't need you quite as much as what you think. I
Oh,
mean, aside from their college essays, but you probably find your time a little bit more, don't you? I mean, how do you parse up your day? How do you make sure you keep time for yourself?
absolutely. So, the first thing that I do is walk my dog, right?
Hmm.
Because I listen to my Abraham Hicks every day
Yep.
lately,
Yep. You're
which is,
Brandon Russ.
it's kind of my, what did you say?
You're Brandon Russ.
My Brandon Russ. I listen to Abraham. And I mean, I don't know if people know about Abraham, but I've always been
Yeah.
spiritual, always listened to, Michael Beckwith, all
Listen,
that.
yeah. Oh God, I love Michael Beckwith. I'll talk about him in a second. I actually have had contact with him, and
Oh, I love
it's
him.
funny. I don't know if you know the demographics or not, but you're kind of right on point with that. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, I don't know, super attractor. I don't know what that is. Four agreements. I don't know. Have you seen it? It's like playing a Beatles song and say, have you heard this one before? So Michael Beckwith actually has this really cool thing. He does Sunday services online,
Oh,
and it is a spiritualist,
oh,
connection. And it's, he throws in God, he throws in Yahweh, he throws in Excelsior, like he puts in words of like our constant creator,
yeah,
and he really like embodies the human experience. And I that's what I've taken from the page of him.
yeah,
And it's, and I think when you begin to kind of like connect with whether you read Gibran, whether you read Wayne Dyer, or whether you read Pima Chodron, whether you read Deepak, whatever it is, you end up taking pages, out of the book, and you're like, you know what, this is a vibe I need to kind of incorporate with this. What do you really resonate with Abraham Hicks?
with Abraham, it's, for me, it's been the unconditioning, right? That
Hmm.
everything that we're taught, everything should be so hard and we should work so hard. And the biggest thing that I got from her is that there's no assertion, there's alignment. So when you're aligned with your inner source,
Hmm.
you're so powerful. And I
Yeah.
love when she's like, if you're off, your energy is really low, take a nap. I'm a big napper. Like reset yourself. I felt like
Because when you hit
I
29,
finally
you're all
got
about
my
the
guru.
you're all about the nap. You're like,
Oh,
what is the bed for? Well, obviously napping and cat naps and
I
cat
am
cuddling.
it just blew me away. Like I'd always felt that because I'm
Mhm.
for a couple of years considered myself like a slowness coach to people because everyone's like hustling and moving. And
You're a
I'm like,
slowness coach.
I am a slowness coach through, everyone's trying to rush, rush, rush.
I love it. I love
Slowness,
it. So you're gonna basically slow down any process.
I'm going to slow you right down. My sister
Yeah.
is totally type A. She's a nurse practitioner. You know, she's working in the city.
She's saving
And
the world. She's saving the world. What are you doing,
saving
Gail?
the world.
What are you doing with that paintbrush?
Exactly. And because, you know, Abraham says one person in alignment is more powerful than millions who are not. And I believe that through your energy, you know, and your power, you affect things like Carmelite nuns, right, Brandon? Do you
Oh,
know?
yeah, no, drop some knowledge on this house, yo.
I believe it was
See, the
Carolyn. I was
kids really
listening to
like it when I
Carolyn.
get like really kind of like hip like that. So drop some knowledge on us.
Yo, yo, yo. I was listening.
All right, you're scaring the kids.
I was listening to Carolyn Mason. I believe it was her who was saying she had heard about these Carmelite nuns who were praying. Basically, you know, when they're awake, they were praying, and that was their whole thing. And she was like, "Oh, I'm really interested. I want to connect with these people." And they were like, "I'm sorry, no, we can't because we don't have the time." And that was like a lightning rod. Like what they were doing energetically was so important that they didn't even have the time to like connect with her, you know, do an interview. And I was like, there are so, I mean, I don't know as many people who spend as much time sort of caring about their energy, you know, whether it's comedy, painting, whatever.
Right.
I'm just like, I see myself as like an, you know, I kind of see that as part of my job is like uplifting people and not even the ones that I meet. What the
And
heck?
I have to apologize. Well, you know, when you bring up nuns, I have to clear the energy. I have to, I'm still working on some really, you know, kind of like deep sacral issues.
Catholic trauma.
With that, well, and it's not even trauma. I actually embrace it, and nor do I disown it. I mean, I think a lot of people like get to a certain point where you're like an example like that is perfect. And I love Carolyn Mays. I love her. She's got it together. She, you know, she was the first one that really, she actually got me to Joe Dispenza because she was about putting together, right. You remember that time in Boca Raton. Anyway, so I don't even know what I'm talking about. But it's like she was the first one to kind of merge the science and the spirit stuff together for me. And
I love that you said that, the merging of the science and the spirit, because I'm
all about that because I've been trying to figure out like how I work. And I've noticed that I need like creative outlet. Like if I'm not, you know, when somebody's like, hey, are you coming out with another CD or are you doing another meditation? The answer is always yes now. It's always yes. I'm doing one or the other or both.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I've got my new friend back here, which made her first appearance on a meditation, on a live meditation, 11:11. And it was, you know, it's great drone sound and it looks like a tree and it's like, oh, so whatever. But to me, I'm now at a place where I want the tools of atonement. I want the tools of music. I want the tools of whatever. And, you know, you get to a certain point where you're just like, okay, you know, I have that like 1 or 2 days a week where I just like go in the shell. Nobody bothers me. I pretend my phone is off.
Right.
You know, that's why I don't answer your texts for like a couple.
Yeah, I've noticed that. What's up with that? I feel like
don't take it personally.
Break. When I text you, I want an answer.
Yeah, you know, but you're such like a paragraph writer, and then when I answer K, you're like, what the fuck? Like really? Like K? Like I just asked you 14 questions, and your answer is K.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just kind of how I roll.
But that's okay. I know who I am.
Yeah, I mean, so I love stories like that, and it's you know, what are some of the other things that like you find inspirational? What are some of the things that like you just like, oh, you know what? I got a little bit of downtime, and I can read maybe 10 or 15 pages. What do you read? What do you look at?
What am I reading right now? What is it? Spiritual. Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, so go ahead and open up Amazon, type in spiritual, and see what comes up first.
Spiritual books. The Gradual Awakening. It's called.
Oh, by who? I'm not familiar.
I'd have to run to my bedroom and get it, but
how many times do I have to tell you we're not doing this video in your bedroom? Jesus, for the love of God, Gail.
FTLOG.
I mean, you know, we're all close here, but
I get my inspiration everywhere because once, like me, in the last year, if you can slow yourself down enough, it's not that we have to add more to our lives. I think you got to slow yourself down. Here's my slowness coach. So that you can, when you take a walk, for example, I'll take a walk. I don't know if you saw, it was a really beautiful little video about leaves. And it just blew me away. These
Isn't it
leaves
great?
and
I know you're slightly obsessed with birds and how the big ones don't flop.
obsessed with
I
birds.
know. I watch all your stuff. Like I am, you have like, you have a couple of followers that like get your stuff right away. I'm one of them. Just telling you.
Makes
I'm
me
a big fan
happy.
because they're hysterical. Like you just, there's no editing, Gail. Like it's
Oh,
like nobody puts baby in a corner. Nobody
right.
edits your
This
missteps,
can't
your
be edited.
miscues. You have a video that cracks me up, and it's quite simply Gail Buggy on YouTube,
Mm.
and you for the first like 3 minutes. There's like a horn or something going on in the background. You're just like, what is that? Will you guys shut up? Like you're acting like there's like 20 people in the car and you're the
True.
only one.
What the hell? Quiet on the set.
It's like it's comedy gold. It's like, for some people that would tune into it, they're gonna look at this and be like, this is where you like delete and then you move your car, or what? Not you. You're just rolling with it. How
That's
important is it that you just roll with it? Like
very important. Like
what's the
I bought,
thing? How do you
I
do
was,
it?
so beginning of last year, right? Before I knew there was going to be a pandemic, I was like,
I
my
did.
weight is a struggle for me. It's part of my journey. And I thought, I want to lose weight. I want to get healthy. And this is my plan. It's foolproof. I'm going to announce my weight on the internet. I'm just going to really double down and say, here's my after picture before, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is my goal. I was like, once you announce your weight, you're never going to fail. That is false.
My favorite part of that 2 video series is that first one you stuck the landing. You're like we were talking about self-talk. You're like, listen to me. I look at myself in the mirror and I say to myself, you got a couple of pounds, just got a couple of kids. You got cats climbing on you. Your man's running off with a dog.
Baby weight.
Oh my God. And then
14 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, isn't that fun? Like when you can incorporate your kids into stuff.
Oh my God.
Over the summer, like one of our first, because like during quarantine, they made you so frightened that you're like, can we go outside? And it's like the big thing was when the mailman came, because you were like, dear sir, please tell me what it's like on the frontier. You're out there. It's like, my kids were like going to the screen door, talking to the mailman going, please, sir, tell us, could you take a telegram to Santa Claus? I'm not sure he can make it this year. It's like, dude, it's April. Like, calm down. So one of the first times we got out, we went to the park and I just taped all of it. And then I started to do this. And it's funny.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question about this, but I have so many like great ideas that I just never find the time for. But this one I actually started to piece together. And I want to make a video, and I've got a song that I want to, put it to, and I can't say it out loud because they will pull it from YouTube.
Yeah.
And I can't wait because I want to make content that like I spend a lot of time on, and then YouTube says you can't use that song for copyright reasons.
Right.
And then I'm going to like change it somehow and then have them go, all right, well, I guess you can take it.
Yeah.
I'm going to speed up the song. It's going to be awesome. I know how to do it now. Anyways.
Nice.
So enough of my turpitude. I'm sorry, Beastie Boys. Okay. You don't need any more. What was I saying? We just had a great time.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, hey, run over there. Hey, look around like somebody's being suspicious. Hang out by this, roadside sign and whatever. And they were just kids. They just had such a great time. How do you incorporate your kids into your creativity, into your comedy, your painting, your videos? How do you do it?
The kids, I'm an interesting type of parent. Lately, my girls, they call me bruja. I don't know if you speak Spanish. It means witch. But not in a bad way. They're not insulting me. They just think I have magical powers somehow. And, I've decided that.
Did she just yell, you do? I think she just yelled in the background. You do. You do. I'm in the witchness protection program. Get that? If you go into hiding, you're in the witchness protection program. I just made that up myself. Copyright pending.
But so I am like a lot of levity. A lot of people are like, I don't think you should be friends with your kids. I am friends with my kids.
Right.
They know who the alpha is. Okay. When it comes to that, they know. You got to have both.
I'm not going to write your essay unless you do the dishes.
But they're part of it. I feel like a lot of times, like I'm teaching them how to live, You know, they
Yeah.
see my friends. I have friends, a friend you know as well, Amy Shanley, and they
I'm
see
gonna
me with,
edit that out.
are you? What?
Yeah.
You can't edit
Yes. Are
Amy.
you kidding me? Don't you know what she's like wanted for?
What?
Are you kidding me? We had listen, unless you want to be a witness to all of the crap that she's in trouble for, I don't want anything to do with.
But my kids see me. They see me with um
The A, the big A.
hoggers. They're hoggers. Okay.
They're hoggers? What do you mean they're
They're
hoggers?
hoggers. When we were in school, there were some mean boys who,
Mm.
because of our size, not all of us, we even had a skinny hogger, they called us hoggers. Little did they know that we would reclaim that name and make it a very prideful emblem. And to this day, we're hoggers. So my girls see me with, I think the biggest thing that I'm teaching them is how to approach their life. You know what I mean? How to have
Yeah.
fun. Because literally, it's not just something you do. I think the whole purpose of being here is to have fun. So,
You know, and isn't that kind of the key to all of this? I mean, it's, you know, in Buddhist philosophy, and I've done a lot of work with Pema Chodron, and she's,
I love her.
well, you know, the thing that I really needed to learn from her was
Yeah.
how to just accept where you are.
Yes.
And I needed to know it as a teacher. I needed to know it as a parent. I needed to know it as, you know, somebody that connects with a lot of people and, you know, friendships and partners and all this other good stuff. And it's, you know, it's also, there's the part of being accepting and the part of being discerning where, you know, you accept certain things. And this is where I'll defend your friendship of your children, is that you can accept where they are, but you have the discernment to say you have to change this, or this isn't acceptable, or this isn't there. A lot of people look at this and you know, whether we're called the snowflake crowd or the, you know, the crystal whatever, new agey,
Yeah.
you know, whatever negative connotation, you know, that is. But then what happens is that, or what the reality of what happens is that when you connect with this, it's about your approach, that you're not coming in and you're yelling and threatening and all this other stuff. And I think that's why, you know, like even our political landscape went the way that it went, where everything was a threat. And it's like, what is up with this? I mean, you know, we still sit in this, you know, through the pandemic and whatever, where there's always this threat. And I watch language, I watch verbiage. And when you use certain language and certain verbiage with your children, with the people that are around you, you literally gravitate certain reactions to it. And I'll really defend you on that. I mean, the simplest terms, your friends, right?
Mhm.
But on the other side of this, there is a part that um you know, you also connect with, that's really super important. I mean, like really important, because when you when you start to form who you are and how you want to kind of move into that, I mean, you know, children look at you as your root, right? You know, you're born into this life. As a parent, you provide the root, you know, your culture, your socioeconomics, your you know, how you celebrate Christmases and holidays and points of view. You know, it's also where we get a lot of our prejudice from, unfortunately. It's also where we get a lot of our bias, you know,
Mhm.
not even prejudice, but bias, I think, is a better term. You're being conscious of that. You're being cognizant that, you know what, you're teaching them an approach.
Yeah.
You know, how did you learn that approach? Like, was it just like self-taught? Was it your parents? Like, how did that come together?
I don't know. That's a good question because my mom was my friend too, and we had some of the best times of my life laughing, tears running down my face with my mom.
Yeah.
And I learned, I think it's kind of Irish that even
Mm.
if something really terrible happens, if you can laugh about it, you're okay. Like once you can get to that point where you can laugh about it. So
Yeah.
it's not that we're always laughing in reaction to tragedy, but
Yeah.
I was a class clown in my high school,
Of course
and,
you were.
of course I was, right?
Of course. I'm still riding that coattail. Like
Forever.
I get 15 class of 90s, you know, at my Elks Club gigs.
Are you younger than me? What year did you graduate high school? Because this
91,
interview's over, okay? How old are
90,
you?
91.
You graduate? Seriously, how old are you? I'm 49. Are you younger than me?
I'm 28.
It's it's gonna
This is painted on. This is
oh,
painted.
okay.
This did some painting yesterday. I'm
But don't you
47.
remember in school, remember like being funny was a liability, right? Like
Oh, it could be.
teachers hated it. It was, I had to
Not to me. I gotta tell
really,
you, I got my way. But then again, I was fair haired. I was blue eyed. I had awesome
you
hair.
think you were
I
better
still do.
looking than I was?
I
Because
didn't. It wasn't. I think
and
we were
that's
going after. I think we were going after different pools. But I used that to my advantage. Although I had hair out to here and hair down to here, and I was living on a prayer. I definitely kind of used that. And it was 4%. I looked like 94% of my school.
yeah,
So for me, if I could be the easy guy, because I saw, the motorhead kids and the blah blah blah
yeah,
blah, blah, the high
yeah,
maintenance people, insert whatever dialect you want. And I just realized that if I could make the teacher laugh and I could be like, so listen, I'm not going to tell you that my dog ate my homework, but he said it was delicious. So I'd like it till Monday to turn it in.
yeah,
Um, and the teacher kind of be like, okay, all right, at least you packaged it well. And it wasn't like, I'm glad you didn't give me like a crap excuse, even though I just gave him a crap excuse.
right.
And I watched myself, do that. But the liability came in when you just, I don't know about you, but I would have that moment
Yeah.
where I'd just be like, I'm taking down this class.
Yeah.
I
Right.
absolutely,
Chaos.
the stage, it's like, the class starts at 11:05 and I'm like, by 11:20, I'm getting kicked out. I'm taking at least two with me. And I don't really give a shit about the Louisiana Purchase. Like I've a predetermined thing where I'm just like,
Oh,
okay, this is going down, right?
completely.
So
Completely.
were you
Too
like,
much power,
what's
right?
that?
It's too much power. The class
Oh,
clown has too much power. I
okay.
remember this one study hall.
And no
This is white.
responsibility.
I'm gonna say God bless her soul, but it's probably God rest her soul. She ran the study hall, and every day I would dick around. I would be like, joking around with my friends,
Hmm.
laughing, 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 and she would tolerate it. Okay, so finally one day something happens. I don't know what. I just remember sneezing, and
Hmm.
in my hands, I have all this mucus. Mucus is probably a word you've not used on your podcast. I'm
Listen,
like this. This
listen.
is the one day she goes, Gail Martin, get to the other side of the class. I'm like, not today, Mrs. White, not today. And I had to like go across with my hands. Anyway,
So you went like
I
full
digress.
blown snot.
It was, my karma at the time to finally get in trouble on the day I had hands full of snot. But um,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh, that's not COVID friendly.
no, no, I can't even imagine.
Oh
But
my gosh.
but now I've reclaimed my humor, and my
Yeah,
levity, because joy is power. It
it
really
really is.
is. Like, it's very, and I've just noticed that when I give myself permission to be real and to be funny,
Hmm.
people love, it resonates with them. You must find that too. And
Yeah,
they're like,
oh, absolutely. I
oh
mean, you can always find, who's angry,
yeah,
and I just used, I read this and it's really sticking with me, in teachings of teaching, and it's, where he reminds you of the Buddhist,
yeah,
that wants to meditate. So he goes out into the boat, and then as he's meditating, a boat runs into him and he gets really angry. And then when he opens his eyes, the boat is empty. And then he realized that the anger was within him. It wasn't somebody else doing something to him.
right,
And I can always gauge, like when you admit that you've done something wrong, when you own it, and depending upon how people are angry with you, really drops the mic on how pissed off they are at their own existence.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I've had entire people, and when I say entire people, entire groups of people that just want to believe a narrative of negativity, or instead of taking it as faces, because in this work you're taught, all right, well, everybody's on a journey. You're going to make a mistake. When they own the mistake,
yeah,
whatever. Well,
yeah,
sometimes when you own a mistake, they just want to pile on it. They just
yeah,
want to be like, oh yeah, well, your philosophy got you here. Oh yeah, well, that mistake was this. It's because you're a this. It's because of blah 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 and blah blah blah. And then like they try and give you the self-doubt. So the self-speak is a real thing,
yeah.
with where you can kind of pull yourself out of it and kind of see where you're at. Um, I would imagine you were a bit of a prankster. What was your best prank?
A prankster.
You had to have been a prankster.
I was completely a prankster.
Of course you were. Like you're a Phil the you're a you know, like in early September, you're like, listen, my other class is like way down the hall. Can I get your locker combo so I can just put my book in it? And then you jot it down, right?
Yeah.
I know you did this. Like I'm
Oh,
reading
yeah.
right now, and you jotted it down, and you're just like, you know what? I'm never even gonna put my book in there, but I've got his locker number. So when he comes back,
Yeah.
you know, like on a random, like your setup time, like this is like April Fool's Day, and
Yeah.
you're just like, you know, he opens up his locker on April Fool's, and like popcorn comes pouring out of it, and you're like right down the hall going, what happened? What happened? Did somebody put some popcorn in your thing? I don't know what happened. I don't, but that was so funny. Right? Like that's you, right?
The only prank. I am a prankster,
Mhm.
but
I like my scenario
I'm
better.
afraid of retribution, right? It always seems
Oh,
to
are you
escalate.
really?
I'm
Oh, you
so
can't be.
afraid of retribution.
My favorite is when somebody like gets back at me and I'm like, oh, that's a good one. So long as it's not like, okay, so here's bad form. Like I'm like joking with somebody and I'm like, hey, you know, you've got a blah blah blah, or you've got a dot 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 dot. Remember the time that you tripped upstairs
Yeah.
and you broke your front tooth, Bucky? You know, like and then they like get upset. And then, you know, it's one thing when they're like, oh yeah, well, how about you, Harry McHairster, or whatever it is? Like that's kind of good and fun. It's not good when you're like, hey, Bucky McBucker, and then they punch you. That's not fun.
More
That's
more the pranks happen to me, Brandon, right? They're
yeah.
like, it's like a Tourette's sort of self-imposed prank. The most
But
embarrassing
you
things
confess, don't
happen
you?
to me.
Oh my gosh, do tell.
Oh God.
You know it's going to be good, everybody.
Uh, I remember once I was working at this company and I went to the bathroom, right? And let me
You're
tell you,
entitled.
there were people,
You're
there were
entitled. The P
managers.
Act of 1962. Everyone's able to go to the bathroom
I
at least
actually
once.
think I lost a job because I pee too much. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about
Are
this
you
one
not familiar with the 1961 P Act?
time. There should
It's
be
just
one.
P. It's not. They didn't even spell it out because it's a short bill. Go ahead.
Huh. So I remember this one time I go to the bathroom, right? If the urge strikes me, I'm not, everybody poops. I'm not gonna
You
hold
gotta
back.
go, right?
You gotta go.
You're in your
There
safe
were
place.
people in
You're in your
this.
safe space.
The bathroom's my safe space.
There
It's
you
also
go.
where all my great ideas hit me. There were,
Isn't it true?
oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Can I
So
tell you
anyway, I go down.
how many people when they're developing,
Yeah.
they're like, oh my God, a spirit came to me in the shower. And I'm like, yeah, it happens. Well, it's because your body is relaxed. You're not like focused. You're not,
It's like a meditation.
exactly meditate in the
Defecation
shower.
as meditation. Thich
Hmm.
Nhat Hanh said.
I
So I
know,
go
right?
in and I relax. Best part of my day. Hated the job. Kick back, relax a little bit. I think I may have gotten too relaxed and leaned on the wall because apparently there
Did
was
you
some
fall
sort of
asleep?
a cord that was like if you're in an emergency and
Oh, I've fallen and I can't get up.
so and it was a small space
Yeah.
outside. So I guess I activated the come help me, which is just what you want to do. You want to draw attention, so I did. And all the senior managers came running from multiple buildings
Because they're
outside.
all just like, who's on our hit list of like, when this goes off, we need an emergency plan. Because there's somebody in HR is like, okay, what happens when the emergency bell call goes off? Well, if it's the ladies' room, we have to send men because you have to be able to pick them up.
All men. And I hear the door knocking and I hear, are you okay? And I think, oh, that's funny. I just had like an auditory hallucination because I know there is not one of the senior managers out there. No, there wasn't one. I finished up, did my thing, head outside. There's like the whole senior management team.
That's
I'm
awesome.
like, oh my God. So it's as if on some level I'm trying to prank myself, Brandon.
That's
These
awesome.
things are always happening to me.
I call my setups as, funny you should say that, because I'm always kind of like saying something where it's like, okay, I got myself into that, or
Right.
I say something and you're like, oh my gosh, that was a message. How'd you know? And I'm like, I don't know. It's like, oh. Yeah. So how'd you lose that job?
Because I am, you know how I really lost that job? Because I'm a fighter, Brandon,
Yeah,
for
go
what's right
ahead.
in this country.
You're
And they
just
were
like, I
starting,
deserve privacy no matter how many times I, pull the call bell.
they said it wasn't that, but anyway, maybe it was that, but that was a job that I lost because
I was only joking. This
I'm
has
not
now
even,
become a confessional. Welcome to
it is
Oprah.
confessional. I'm the person who has to defend everyone. You know what I mean?
Sure,
I'm
sure.
the,
Like that's part of the healer creative energy.
yeah,
Like you
but
you you have to right the wrong, whether it's like animals, whether it's somebody that didn't get a fair shake, and you're like, hey, that's not okay.
I was
Yeah, I
like, I'll
totally
take
get
the
that.
hit. I will be the spokesperson.
Hmm.
And I did. And they, you know what I mean? Anyway, it went to the labor board and eventually it was all in my favor because it was
Did
so
you really? Oh
obvious.
my gosh!
I
So
did.
you went like hardcore. You were just like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
You like total. You went total Karen, and you're like, oh yeah. Well, let's see how your day in court's gonna go, Mister. That's awesome, though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it was
Mm.
it was good. I'm very proud of that. It's funny, when you stand up, when you're a little kid, Brandon, everyone's like, just tell the truth, just tell the truth. What they
Yeah,
don't tell you is that you think, oh, if I tell the truth, I'm going to be celebrated, but it's
yeah.
not the case, right?
No,
You got to
no. You
learn
get
that.
villainized. You really do get villainized, and then the trend now seems to be that not only do you get villainized, but then it's also like they just throw speculation stuff. Like, why she's like that? She's crazy, she's bipolar. It's like they just start making stuff up, and you're just like, why should you have an opinion
Right.
of any of that? And I think that's the one thing I really don't miss
Yeah.
about working for someone else. And it's,
I can't.
because they couldn't control their environment. And, you want to be this outgoing, connective,
You hear that?
person.
I'm sorry. That's my pussy screaming. Should I let him out?
I don't care. We'll do whatever it is you need to do.
Is it bothering you?
That's not bothering me at all. Actually,
Oh,
I,
stop
um, I mean, it's the type of thing where when have a, um, when you have a passion
it.
and it's, there's several types of passions. There's the expression, passion, which, by the way, people always ask me about this painting right here. A lot of people don't know this, but you are the creator of the first CD cover I ever, of the first CD,
Yay.
Meditation 101, which, by the way, I am actually remastering to re-release.
Oh,
Yeah, it was the recording chops on that were like horrible. They
okay.
were like really bad. It's like, like literally at the beginning of one of the tracks, this is what you hear. Take a simple deep breath in
Me.
through your me.
Oh, I'll have to get a copy, a download,
I
whatever the
yet
current
another one.
medium is.
So, but it was funny though, because it's like, I listened to it and I was just like, for a while, I was like, oh my God, don't listen to that. I would literally say to people, they would be like, wow, that CD cover is great. I'd be like, yeah, it is. And they're like, where can I get it? And I go, here, this is the only one I have. And they're like, no, the actual CD. And I'm like, you don't really want it. And
Self-sabotage.
yeah. So walk me through that with your art. Like, you have to
Yeah.
have, where do you get the discernment of, I can do better?
Yep.
And oh gosh, this is just not my best work. Like, where's your cutoff? Where do you start saying, where do you become satisfied? Is it just through
You know,
the art of creation, or do you actually reach a level?
I you see on my YouTube page, I titled it Late Bloomer, right? Because I
I
feel
love
like
that you're a late bloomer. I freaking love that.
took me so long to get rid of that voice in my head. That's why Abraham Hicks really resonates with me, because it's
Sure.
the voice in your head. Like, it was all in my painting. It was frustrating to be like an overthinking painter, right? Because as a painter, what you enjoy is the freedom, the being in the moment. But I was always in my head. And
Mhm.
finally, it all coalesced. Feel free to
Yeah.
use, that's a great word right there. Coalesce. It all sort of started happening in my late 40s, where I was like, don't doubt your brushstrokes. Your brushstrokes are brilliant. And
Yeah.
don't doubt that. You want to talk about intuition too? Don't doubt the feeling that you want to paint something. I sent you the text that I had this feeling to paint Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah.
So I
Go ahead.
painting it. I start painting it. It's that whole, the VPS, right?
Yep.
I'm like, today is the day. I thought about it for a while because she's an amazing woman and I like to represent the unrepresented. And I start
Mhm.
painting her. And a couple hours later, I pull up TMZ, as we all do,
Yep.
for my gossip, celebrity gossip. And the first freaking thing is Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died, which of course,
Isn't that
understand
crazy?
how crushing, right? As much
Right.
as we all loved her, we were like, please, Ruth, live till December, live as long as you can, but
Yeah.
definitely live past the election.
It's
And
funny.
that,
I was actually with somebody who really idolized her, and she
yeah,
hadn't heard the news, and I had to break the news, and I was like, I'm like, I don't know how to tell you this, but
yeah, you don't want to be the person bearing that
RBG.
kind of news, right?
Yeah, like I'm totally like, it's like I want to tell you that, Keyshawn just got traded to the, from the Jets to the, you
But
know,
it
to
was
it
crushing.
was they did not take well. Like there were a lot of tears. We didn't get a lot of work done that day.
Yeah.
Um, but it's, I think it's really cool that you connected with that energy
And now
and
I pay attention to it more. That feeling, right?
keep going.
Years ago, I'd be like, don't stop it as a coincidence. You thought of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Of course you did.
Mm-mm.
Now I'm starting to own them. And as I own the intuition, it starts to happen more.
Yeah.
Like now it's like,
Well,
okay, you're
that's
listening. Great.
as a teacher, I talk about that often because here's what happens. You look at it as like leveling up. I call it leveling up. The
Love
other
it.
teachers that I work with, we talk about kind of getting to that next level, and it's like we're hurtling towards the 5D. It's just how do you want to kind of go there? And if you kind of start to unlock this, if you unlock it with that subtle thing of like, I feel the need to paint,
Mhm.
route today, and you start to, kind of explore that, it starts off small,
Yeah.
it starts off with that gut feeling that you end up getting validation. I don't care if it's painting a painting or if it's having that intuition about that new hire where you're like, yeah, 3 weeks they're out of here, whatever it is that you begin to kind of work that play in
Yeah.
and you get validation, and that's kind of the key to this. And once you kind of get there, it's like your guides are entrusting you with information. What you do with it is what unlocks it. So if you are, if you come to it and you're like, okay, well, I got the validation that I should have painted Ruth, then they're going to be like, okay, well, that's your wake up call to say, okay, next time I gotta work with it. Cause how cool would that be that I started painting a painting
Right.
the day she passed away, that somehow, and she passed away hours before they announced it. So
Right.
chances are there's some interconnection
Right.
that made you go, Ruth, all right, I'm going to go do this.
Right.
And you felt that honor and you went with it. But instead, you chose to actually start to paint it instead of just acknowledge it.
Right.
How powerful is that? That's the stuff that gets your guides and your angels really jazzed up. That's when they go, oh, hey, Larry, she's ready. She's
Yes.
doing it.
Yes.
She's actually paying attention to it. She's acting upon it. And it ends up being a passion play
Yeah.
because then you get hungry for it. Then you get open more. I
Yeah.
think that when I first started in mediumship, I was seeking validation all the time. I
Hmm.
call myself
Hmm.
more of a scientist because I'm finding validation. And when you're an evidential medium, you go, here's the evidence.
Yeah.
Like, here is the flower dress that your grandmother used to wear. How did you know that? There's no way you could have known that because in they showed it to me. I said it,
Yeah.
and there's been times where I eat it. It's so funny. Early on, I would be like, nah, it's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. My
Right.
logical brain and my
Find
creative brain were at odds with one another. And they're just like, just say it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to say it.
it.
And then, I'd sit there and I'd be like, I don't know. He was dressed up like a hobo and danced with a flower on his hat. And then the
Right.
next thing out of their mouth is, well, my dad was a circus clown. And you're
Wow.
just like, what the fuck? Why didn't I
Right.
say that?
Right.
Or, in many cases, I'll say something and the person will be like, yeah, that doesn't resonate. And I've learned this to stick the landing. I'm like, nope, I'm going to stick with what I said because they showed it to me. I have to honor them by what I get and go do that. Like you could have started to paint that beautiful picture. That is amazing. And by the
Thank
way, I'm going to do a
you.
cutaway of that here. It's really an amazing, painting and portrait. What are you going to do with it? That's kind of a
She's
crazy
already
question.
sold.
Did
She's
you?
on her way. I have to ship her, but I'm a bit of a procrastinator with shipping. So I have to ship her, but she
By
was
the way, you
sold.
did this in 1994, and I got it like 3 months ago.
And there's a whole other weird story about the person who purchased it. There's a whole other story. My friend
Can you tell it
Christine,
without making them weird?
my friend Christine O'Leary, is it,
Christ, you
is
and the
that
names.
bad? You're not supposed to do that? What?
I don't know. I mean, it's not like
She-
we're holding up like, what she really did on her wedding night was this.
a dear friend of hers who
Okay.
was obsessed with RBG. I have to slow down because I usually go RGB, but I know it's
We do
RBG.
that, don't we? We're like
Slow it down.
Roy G. Biv, right?
Exactly. So her friend who loved RBG had passed away, and there was a service, but like was really obsessed, probably like your friend. Like, I
Mhm.
feel like I'm late to the game. I just recently discovered how amazing she is.
You're
She's
like, really? There's 9 of them?
well, she had
False clown.
was having this memorial service, pulled up Facebook randomly, saw the starting of the painting, and she said, you know, something like, is that, how much is that? Or is that for sale? And like, so it's amazing the multi dimensions of it. It wasn't just me, it was my friend in Maine having a memorial service for a friend who was like, you blew my mind by posting that day.
Yeah.
And normally I don't post things that aren't finished because, the ego's like, I'm not posting that yet. But it struck me so much.
They're gonna see all the numbers.
Exactly. They're gonna see it.
I'm sorry.
Um,
I make fun of you, but you're so freaking talented. It rolls off your back.
so sweet.
All right.
So, but I did post it and it was rough. And Brandon, I'll send you the picture. It's like there's like a halo at this point
Oh,
when I
that's
post.
awesome.
It was bizarre. And so it's like I love when other people who are connected, it's like this telephone of people who are
Yeah.
on the same wavelength. And it's just exciting. It's anyway, so yes,
Yeah.
she is sold.
So it's, I think the really kind of cool thing about this is that, first of all, it really surprised me when Ruth passed away, how the outpouring was, and forget about what the political maneuvering was. That was just horse hockey. But on the other side of that, kind of like what she represented, and I pointed this out. I don't know if I've done it publicly, but this is a good spot to do it. By her being RBG, she's also, and of course I'm joking around about the, Roy G. Biv and,
Yeah, yeah,
colors of the rainbow and
yeah.
that sort of thing. Well, if you look at her initials and as chakras, she's talking about the root of who we are, what we're about. So that's the
Mm,
R.
mm,
She's got the blue, which is the throat chakra, and she spoke for so many people. And the green, of course, is the heart. And at the center of it all, she did everything with compassion.
yeah.
She has the perfect initials for who she was and what she did. So I think and again, I'm not being political about it.
Yeah.
I mean, her approach, and it's funny, what we're actually talking about is approach again,
Yeah.
because it wasn't so much, I mean, ironically, and a lot of people don't, unless you're really kind of an aficionado, and I'm not anywhere near it. A lot of her stuff, her first mode of operation was to actually work with Republican values to get their stuff worked out
Scalia.
before any agenda items came up. And she never had an agenda. She never said, we need a case on this or we need a, whatever. She was very learned and she was very much across the aisle. However, where she never wavered from is, okay, well, where's the compassion in this? Are we creating a country full of like, are we making steamrolls or are we making a path? And she never varied from that. And that's why, I mean, when she would create paths, it was about kind of the equality conversation and all of that other jazz.
Mm.
It was so far ahead of her time that
Completely.
she needed to get along with Rehnquist in a way that nobody else. I mean, I've kind of become obsessed with the back end. I love the
Yeah.
backstories with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Me
don't
too.
actually care about her politics. It sounds funny
Yeah,
that I say it like that.
yeah.
I care more about her operations, about her MO. And I have found this very consistently. Her MO was almost always about making sure that it was human.
Yeah. You're
And
right.
that's what made everybody so like outraged of like, oh, you're going to hurry up and replace her. And that's disgraceful. Blah, blah, blah. That actually doesn't matter. Her
Yeah.
legacy will never be touched.
Right.
ever. And anybody that compares her to
Right.
what's going on today or next person or whatever,
Yeah.
remember how I was saying, what page do you take out of Abraham Hicks
Right.
or Ruiz or Wayne Dyer or whatever? You can't compare yourself. You have to just take a page
Mm.
from what you did. And I think that's what you did. I think that's pretty amazing.
And
Go ahead.
Joe, I found, I love her politics. I mean, I happen to align very much with what she stood
Mhm.
for, but you're right in that it was more her energy, and she was very classy, and not in the
Yeah.
way of she knew which fork to use, which I'm sure she did.
Right.
But I think class is more, for example, there was this attorney who was interviewing her, and obviously the attorney knew a lot what she was talking about, but Ruth was the master, the sage,
Hmm.
and her humility. Like, we don't really have a lot of humility anymore.
Yeah.
She knew who she was, so she wasn't afraid to be humble.
Humble.
And the person interviewing her was like, and then this. And Ruth had wanted to give an insight, but she didn't want to in any way diminish what the reporter was saying. And she said, well, keep in mind this happened, as I'm sure you know. And I think of how different, the grace that she
Yeah.
had. And that was really
The kind of, where someone else may be bombastic and say, you ignorant itchy pants.
right, right. But it
Yeah.
was her humility, and like, and I always tell my friends who were devastated at her death and the timing of it, I'm like, it doesn't matter. She was the spark that lit 1,000 fires, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that we can say, please save us, Ruth. Well, she lit a fire in each and every one of us to know our power and know we're not going to accept certain things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. It's inconvenient maybe that she passed when she, or whatever. I'm sure it happened the way it's supposed to,
It
but we
always does.
can't. Exactly. It's that she lit the fire in us,
Hmm.
that, and that was, infinitely more powerful.
Well,
So
I love that you have inspiration behind you. So do you find inspiration in your paintings by painting people? Which, by the way, if I was to do a painting of any person, it would actually look more like a stick figure with hair. You have exquisite quality with this. Why did you paint John? And I love that you put his number up. I'm going to pull that apart.
um, that's an interesting painting in that I was at a function on Sunday, and I met this really, people that you meet with, you connect, and you're like, oh my God, we're friends. In
Yeah,
fact,
sure.
you- his
Like us, some odd thing we meet at a
exactly.
wedding. Yeah, I was the best man. You were the photographer, and we just started
I'm
laughing.
like, now that we're best friends,
We're best friends.
it's weird.
I want
So
you to do my painting, and I'm going to be a musician, and I'm going to have an album, and I'm a medium. You're like, I'll ship that to you in 6 to 8 weeks.
so I met someone, this
Congratulations.
fabulous man who actually is 29. I'm like, I can't even talk to you
I
because
know.
whatever.
Listen,
It's
there you go.
crazy.
Did you change
But
his temperature?
he was amazing, and
Yeah.
he had referenced that he wanted to purchase something for his mentor, and he said, have you ever painted
John Lewis.
I'm having a stress moment. I get that, and I completely go blank. And I said, I haven't yet, but I love
Right.
him. He's amazing, and blah, 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 blah. And,
Yes.
everybody associates John Lewis with his older self, like he really sort of came, at least I do. Like, I don't
Right.
know, where he was really in
Like
power.
Montgomery, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
So it's not even the fact that he had I think 25-year career in politics. It's more about when he was, when he walked with MLK, right?
yes. And that, I always struggle, I painted young Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and people are like, they're not gonna know it's her, but I gotta go with that feeling,
If you don't know that that's her, you're not paying attention.
thank you.
Yeah,
But
thank you. You did an excellent job.
thank you. But so that's how that came about. He said, oh, and I thought, oh my God, that'd be an amazing thing. And I'm like, but I want to paint him in his mugshot, right?
That's
And if
really
you look
cool.
at the different mugshots
It's
of
so
John Lewis,
badass.
it's so like, and like, so this was years ago. It's not like his mugshot from you know, 2019 when, you know, things had changed. His mugshots from early on, from 63,
Yeah.
he's still got, it's like a look of the one I just did is like hope and disappointment, because I'm sure he's been roughed up, he's been beaten up, you know,
Sure.
so there's a sadness, but there's not that anger, there's not the vitriol. It's still that class, you know,
Yeah.
that I'm doing something bigger than me. So yeah, I wanted to paint him getting arrested, causing good trouble.
That's fantastic.
Now I want to get arrested, causing good trouble.
Yeah.
I'm a little jealous.
Isn't that kind of the way to, you know, way to go? And again,
Yeah.
you know, I think all social and I think it's really interesting that I mean, think of the dichotomy of what you have behind you. You have Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who for all intents and purposes actually had a very clean, like judicial career. Like
Yeah.
she was, you know, just, you know, all the way up through the ranks. And when she was chosen for her very specific, she was very well read and very well written. John Lewis was in the right place at the right time. And then he knew the advocacy, and then he surrounded himself with good policy writers and good policymakers and that sort of thing. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, so he kind of comes from this, you know, place of abyss and trouble, for lack of better terms, against the establishment. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg was inside the establishment and kind of said, this is the way it should, this is the way we should steer. You can be the big giant boat, but I need to rudder this. Right. And I think that's really cool. I think, you know, I think a fun exercise for you would be, you know, I know we just met, but for some reason I feel like I have to paint you in your mugshot, or, you know, like think of the scenario in which you would like paint them and be like, I'm going to take a, what's that?
It glitched out, Brandon, for a second. You said a fun exercise for me, and then what did you say?
I said, you should dance at Sharky's.
Okay. If you think that'll help me on my
career
growth,
advice.
I'll do it.
I don't do career advice per se anymore. No, but I think a good exercise for you would be when you meet somebody, think of like when you would paint them, like what stage of their life was impactful. What, you know, maybe I should paint your mugshot. Maybe I should paint your, you know, whatever. And my suggestion to you, I know you're shipping this out to somebody, but I would 100% get a really good picture of this and make prints out of it, especially the RBG one.
Absolutely.
You know, and certainly John Lewis. I mean, you've definitely got something. So who's the lovely woman over your shoulder?
So that is the middle one?
Yeah. Who's
that?
Your mom? Your
is
grandmother?
Young Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh, that's young Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
She's like very young. Did you see her epoxy? She's just fabulous. I love her too.
That's fantastic.
But, little obsessed.
Yeah, but see, people will go, who is that? Rita Hayward?
Or Lauren Bacall.
Lauren Bacall, definitely got a Lauren Bacall feel.
So like Lauren Bacall, so beautiful. But if you look at this picture, it's so her. But yeah, I'm just it's hard because I want to paint. I want to use my art in a way that's gonna represent people who, you know, like people didn't really think of Ruth Bader Ginsburg as beautiful as well. You know what I mean? Typically as the, you know, the movie star. But so that's why I wanted to do that one. But
that's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a good yeah, I think it's a really kind of cool take on that, to kind of have a before and after. And I really think you're going to do some print work.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, I get asked for prints for this all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Expand into that, learn it, you know, but
it's simple. Make sure you get good pictures of them now. And then when you give it to the person and say, listen, I still own the rights to this, right?
Right.
You know, just don't be, you know, this business 101 right there.
I appreciate it.
It'll be like, listen, I know you, and then the you know, the RBG people show up and say, yeah, you don't own it either.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, did you take that photo of Ruth in 1962?
I just dreamt it up. This woman named Ruth, she kind of looks like her. What, you think that looks like Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
You crazy.
You fell off the wagon there. But cool. So how do you keep it creative? What are some?
How do I keep it creative?
Yeah, how do you keep yourself creative?
It's funny. I used to think, because now I consider myself a painter, right? I'm an artist.
Sure.
So I'm like, well, you got to paint every day. And it's a little different with painting, right? A lot is the fermenting too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's finding the balance between, I'm like, well, I can only paint when I'm inspired. Well, that's not true either. I'm
Yeah.
getting better at making it like my everyday. But I find I do need to be away sometimes. You know, you need as sometimes there are times when I want to finish a painting and I'm done. My gas tank is empty. And
Yeah.
if I continue to paint, I'm going to ruin it. And I've done it enough
How do you
times now.
refill the guff? And do you think that like the comedy and the humor part of it like
Yes,
keep the creative side going?
completely.
Yeah.
Even sometimes the ridiculous. You know, I love my housewives. I'm going to watch a little of the Housewives of New York.
Which one do you watch? Los Alamos. There's like 25 of them now, right?
Oh gosh, I love my New Yorkers because I really relate to them too.
Bridgeport. You look up to
Yeah,
them
it's funny they haven't done a Real Housewives of Connecticut because people don't
because you
really.
keep stonewalling them with your contract,
I would be in it in a heartbeat, but I feel like they should get somebody from Greenwich, New Canaan. Like that's a fascinating world.
right?
You can't break into it because it's so everything is a facade, is like
Stepford. It's like
yes.
the Real Wives of Stepford.
So my prediction
Well,
is
we
you're never going to see that.
Yeah, well, we have that a little bit up here. You have that a little bit like in different pockets of the Capital District, but it's also not. I think when I meet people like that, almost always they're like, by the time they come to me for whatever reason, whether they're getting a reading or the life coaching or the healing, sound healing or whatever,
Yeah.
they almost always talk about like, gosh, you don't know what it's like to be in this life. Like, I don't like to keep up this facade. And then you actually find the most real people in the most unreal of circumstances. And they're like, boy, people just don't understand. Like, I'm an artist, or
Yeah.
I'm really funny, or,
Yeah.
or I'm gifted and I need to kind of foster this. And it's funny because when they find their voice,
Mm,
the first thing I say to them is, or at least one of the points of early emphasis, I should say,
yeah.
is you're going to lose a lot of these people.
Yeah.
You're going to lose a lot of these people.
Right.
And you've got to be okay with saying to them, like, my reality is different than yours. And when you do that, holy Toledo, does that, I mean, it turns them on their ear, really.
Yeah.
And it's pretty awesome. I love your cat. What's your cat's name?
Oliver. His
Stop.
French name is Olivier René Francois Bouget Twist.
God bless
But
you.
we call him Oliver. Sorry.
How'd you acquire him?
You had to ask, right? You had to ask.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know. You stole him from a
I
front porch?
adopted a cat, his mother, a very sassy little kitten named Fiona from Staten Island. And
So Lady Marmalade.
so they said, we'll give her to you. She's very young, but you have to sign this agreement that you'll have her fixed, like, within a certain amount of time. I'm like, yeah. Of course I'll get that done. Let me put that on the to-do list. It was on my to-do list.
My body, my rights. How does that work out? Huh?
Exactly.
It's like,
so
as soon as April 1st hits, you're like, where's the cat? What's that sound? Oh my God, are those kittens?
No, I know the night she got knocked up. Because she got out and I slept on the couch so I could hear her. Meow. I opened
which is cat for it's not going to take care of itself.
I opened the front door and there's not one but 4 cats on my walkway, and I see another one's like a striped tiger cat. I'm like, watch me grab the wrong cat.
Yeah, well, here's the worst part. They were all answering a Craigslist ad.
So I grab my cat and I say, listen, gentlemen, you've had a good time. The party's over. If I tell you I brought my cat in and they threw themselves against the door, I was like, wow, my girl's got game. My girl has got game. They didn't want to go away. So eventually they left and I'm like, oh, I hope she's not pregnant. I hope she's not. Well, of course she was pregnant, right? And that's Oliver. There were 4 kittens. One passed away. One was a Bengal, I'm pretty sure, because apparently cats can have sex with multiple partners and have different dads in their litters. Did you know that? Did you know that?
No, but the Craigslist ad was really specific about that.
So
Terrible.
I had to keep Oliver because when he was born, he had it's called flattened chested kitten syndrome. Yeah,
I
I
think you
knew.
just made that up.
No, 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 no. It's absolutely the truth. When you picked him up, when you pick up a kitten normally, and it's like rounded, but when I picked up Oliver, his rib cage was like this. You're Googling flattened chested kitten
I
syndrome, aren't
am.
you? And his was more this shape. Look at my hair.
I'm looking at it. I think you're full of shit.
And
Yeah, Google literally, it pulls it up and it says, is Gail using this again?
no, it's true. And I told the vet,
Okay.
the vet's like, I don't even know what's wrong with him. I'm like, I think it's flattened chested kitten syndrome. I've done some research. He said, oh my God, you're right. So I kept him because
And then you charged your vet. You're like, that'll be $75.
serious.
And then the vet's like, hey, I'm the professional. And you're like, why am I able to get it from Cat MD?
Exactly. Cat MD. Exactly. So that's how I got him. I'm a little embarrassed that I wasn't a good pet owner, but
You're an excellent pet over. I mean, think of the fun she had.
She had a good
So
time.
is Lady Marmalade still with us or no?
She passed.
Oh
She did
no.
pass.
Oh no, that's so
She-
sad. Well, when you live that kind of
breast
lifestyle, it's going to catch up
cancer.
to you.
Breast
What?
cancer. Which,
Like,
yeah, I think it was my karma.
Gail, ready? Here's what the title of this one's going to be: Everyday Intuition with Gail Buggy, who raised a hussy cat.
A hussy kitty.
Hussy kitty.
Kitty.
Boy, we cleaned that up in a hurry, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We were so close, so close. So how do we got to tie comedy into this because the comedic chops, like, how did you learn this? I mean, did you improv? Like, how'd you get there?
I've never done improv and I'd like to do improv. So
like now?
No, don't stress
Keep
me
going.
out. I'll shut down like a clam.
That's what happens, by the way.
Funny. I was always funny,
Mhm.
but I also was terrified
Yeah,
to be
it's a
funny.
totally different game when you get in front of people.
It
Like,
is.
you could be the life of a party, and then you get in front of people, and there is art, there's science, there's technique, there's delivery, there's refinement. There is so much that goes into a good 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That people don't even it's like, he's not funny, he's whatever. I'm obsessed, just like with music. Like, I'll listen to, like, oh, this is a tonality they used and how they do this recording technique. I'm not as keen on like, oh, he went A to E to G just like everybody else. I want to hear, like, what they did do different. With comedians, those are well crafted. I mean, really well crafted.
Yeah.
And, like, how did you get your chops with that? And I know you're still early in the career, but you're a freaking riot. And if you stick with it, you're going to get there.
I appreciate that. I saw a class was being offered, right, at the Richmond Playhouse. My friend Christina Leary teaches it. And I had an intuition. I saw her thing and I thought, I'm going to be friends with her. Like, another one of these.
And we're going to go ice skating and we're going to make
We're going to do a lot of things. We're going to get
coffee.
Done. And I took the class and I was terrified because I had a horrible fear of public speaking. In 10th grade, I had a panic attack. Oh my gosh. I did not do public speaking from 10th grade. I graduated college, but every class that had on the syllabus public speaking, I dropped and took another class. Phobic. So finally I was like, are you just going to let this fear drive your whole life? I hate to be on my deathbed thinking, I wish I did.
I didn't do it.
I didn't do it. So I took this class. It was absolutely transformative, right? Because for me, especially, it's a way, Christina always says comedy is a way to tell the truth. But for me, there was a whole other level too of just confronting my fear of public speaking, which is crazy. People are like, you have a fear of public speaking? I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. I did. I don't anymore.
And it's funny. I find that when you say this to, when somebody says they have a fear of public speaking, but yet they're so funny or they're so outgoing or gregarious or whatever, you have to recognize that sometimes part of the reason why you're outgoing and gregarious is because that's your way to control it.
Right.
By saying, hey, lady,
I'll get this first.
Correct. But instead of saying, okay, give us your best 3 minutes, you're like, the guy walked into a bar. So did you ever hear the time that I've done stand up like twice, and the first time I ever did it was hysterically bad, like just fucking bad.
That's all right.
So I get up there, and it was for a fundraiser for March of Dimes, and it was, the good friend of mine, was doing it, and I said, listen, I'm going to be a sponsor, but I want you to get me on stage. And he goes, you're going to pay me to get on. All right, whatever, Brandon. I go, yeah, I need like 10 or 15 minutes. And he goes, you have two. And that was like a blessing, because if I was out there for 10, it would have been, I mean, nobody needs to hear that many crickets, right? So I get up there, and I'm like, I'm going to wing it, because I'm intuitive. Right. Like, I work with intuition. Like, I go into every reading, every time I have a circle, every time I have an interview, every time I do a podcast, like I've got some stuff in my back pocket. Like, hey, let's talk about this. And I want to talk about creativity and painting and Ruth and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not like, I don't set expectations for it. So when I walked up there, and I had like two bits, right? Where, the first bit was going to make fun of, self-deprecating humor, because that's all that we, really kind of need. And there were a few people there in the audience that like knew me. And I said, well, some people look at me and say, boy, what is he, extra large, 2X? And I say, no, I'm more of a medium. And the two people in the crowd, 4 people that knew me as a medium were like, like, that's all I got. I just got, and it was in chorus. It was like, and I'm literally like, I literally did one of these. I was like, after I said it, it was like, yeah, more of a medium.
Yeah. Oh.
And then I kind of got onto it. It's I still haven't really kind of formed the joke. It goes something like this, where I said, it's so different. I was a musician for years, and, you kind of learn, it's really easy. You learn other people's stuff, and you go out on stage, and people love you for it, because you're playing songs that they know, but you can't do that as a comedian. I can't walk out there and say, my kids are brain damaged, here's the 7 dirty words, and I'm a domestic goddess. You're going to look at me and you're going to go, hey, that's not you.
Yeah.
But if I said, I got my first real 6-string and I bought it at a 5 and dime, I played it till my fingers bled.
It was the summer of '69.
I wish you were in the crowd that night, because nobody else got that joke. It was meant to get the whole crowd going, and it literally bombed. And it wasn't even really a joke as much as there's observational humor and that sort of thing. I've learned so much more now, because I went back to it and I said, just like with your brushstroke, you're like, okay, well, I'm funny, but I want to be a craftsman about it. I'm pretty good at painting, but I don't want to just do houses. Like you start to kind of mold that a little bit. Who's your favorite comedians? Like, who do you listen to when you listen for a laugh?
I saw him live, Gary Goldman.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
listen, his bit on the state abbreviations, one of the best skits ever.
Oh,
like when he gets into the, slap my ass and call, like that whole thing of like how he scenario bases. I think some of the best comedy brings you into a place. I mean, you have the Rodney Dangerfield that are a shtick, right? Yeah. Where he's just like, I asked the bartender to surprise me and he showed me a picture of my wife. It's like, like he's got those one-liners, know. And then you've got the people that are like storytellers that bring you in, that have the observation. And then you have somebody like Gary Goldman that brought you into something that was just a funny freaking story. I love stuff like that.
So brilliant. And I also love him because he suffered with anxiety.
Yeah, his anxiety album. And oh my God, that is eye-opening.
That to take that and turn it into like humor and to confront it. And he thought he was never going to go back to comedy. He was just like, well, I guess it's over now because I can't, whatever.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was able to confront that really speaks to me. And he's just like the Trader Joe's stuff is.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, one of the things I really loved about that album by Gary is that he had a whole thing about, I don't think people really realized how athletic he was.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, that dude was like, like I remember him playing. It was football.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember him playing. I remember the name
yeah,
at least. And you
yeah.
know, not that I was a degenerate gambler, but I would watch, you know, like a couple of Saturday football games, and I just remember the guy because he was tall. It
It's
was
like
one of those
6'9",
things where it's
I
like, you know,
think.
he's around like man child. You know, he's a man child,
Yeah,
and it's, you know, and whether it was just kind of put into my recesses of my mind, but when he was telling the story, I'm like, son of a gun, I remember like a tall tight end, you
yeah.
know, Boston College, you know, kind of whatever.
Can't
And
forget
it's,
a tall tight end.
yeah,
Put him
it's
bunch.
yeah, right. And what was amazing though for him with that album was
Yeah.
so you could hear how cathartic it was for him.
The
It was
catharsis.
just like I'm literally doing something I'd given up hope on.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Oh,
catharsis of telling the truth and confronting your fears. You know, we were joking about my daughter's, she wrote her college essay, and that's really the gist of it, is like she's a drummer, and she was going on stage and they were going to perform
mhm.
Nirvana in Bloom. And you know, about being a drummer, you're like in control, right? You're in control of the tempo, you start the thing, and she was like blacking out. So that's her college essay.
That is a really tough. Well, it's a good beginner song.
Yeah,
But I'll tell you what screws up young drummers with that
yeah,
is the transitions, whereas
yeah, yes,
that
yes,
is so slow that it's like you could vary it, dun, dun, dun,
yeah,
dun, dun, dun,
yeah, yeah,
and then you come back into it. You're just going to come into it with a faster mode.
right.
'Cause
It's
that
always
would be
the
a tough.
speed.
That's a tough tune. Even, you know, that's a tough tune.
So, you know, confronting your fear and how like empowering that is. Not just, you know, I think in the beginning of my life, like a lot of people, it's like, no, you're perfect, nothing's wrong with you, you're not afraid. And
Yeah.
then once you start to own all your sort of shadow pieces, there's so much power there. You know, there's so
And
much.
well, and I think as an artist, you really work with your shadow self all the
Yeah,
time. You
yeah,
know, like you have an expressionism of this, like, or you have something that you missed out on that you want to kind of bring forward. And it's funny, you know, like whether you aspired to be Ruth or whether you want to be badass and get arrested like John, or, you know, if it, you know, for me, I'm kind of playing around with this really kind of, this is funny. I've gotten into Scandinavian folk
okay.
music, which is not, you know, I mean, you know,
Yeah,
I'm an Irish kid, I guess. You know, and half of my family's from, you know, parts, you know, Nordic.
yeah,
But for me, like I heard this and I'm like, oh, I love the drum sound. I love the drone. And there's a certain like dark edge to it. And I'm like, I want to tap into that. Yeah.
the
Do you
dark
ever find yourself, and I think comedians do this all the time. You know, some of them are like, hey, I'm brutally honest, and I'm going to talk
yeah,
about deep, dark secrets of me being in a hotel room for, you know, 300 days a year.
right.
Do you feel like you do that with your art, with your comedy, with your stuff?
Definitely with my comedy. I mean, the dark, you know, and I'm also very, I think of myself, I try to be very enlightened and kind, and but the dark, there's definitely, we all have dark, right?
Yeah.
All like I can be so, I mean, that's where the truth
Hmm.
makes it interesting.
Well, I think what happens too is that you need to kind of have that. I think you need to have that balance.
Yeah,
You know, where if you don't have an outlet to that, you know, you really do go Ernest Hemingway.
yeah,
You really do go over the edge. You really do, you know, you don't just touch the third rail, you become the third rail. And I think when you're able to have those outlets, like I'm, you know, this one song that I'm creating is very like there's this drone drum in the background.
yeah,
Doon, doo, 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 doon, doo, 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 doon. And it's like you hear this and it's very meditative. It's very everything I'm going to do is be meditative, but it's got this kind of this overtone of like, okay, you're going to let this go. It's going to be uplifting, but you've got to reach down into into this dark. I think with comedy, sometimes when we hold up the reflection, we tell the stories, it doesn't matter what the technique is, but when you hold up the stories to somebody and you're like, what makes them laugh sometimes is the awkwardness
yeah.
of
If
what
you
you
can
just
be in
showed
control
them.
of it. Yeah, yeah,
You know, so when you know, when you hold up a young Ruth Bader Ginsburg and they're just like, well, that's not her.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, she's freaking beautiful. This was her original, you know, this is her in law school in
yeah,
1949. Like you
yeah.
were, you know, she's a knockout. This is who she was. And then they get stuck in the misconception of, oh, I can be beautiful at the beginning and the end, or
Yes.
or they turn it towards, and this was her politics. Look at what her politics did to her. You know what? She aged gracefully. Kiss my ass.
Oh, yeah.
I think one of my favorite comedians is Maria Bamford,
Huh.
because she's one of the ones that will take you into, welcome to my world. And she uses voice. She literally has like 3 different voices.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think she's one of these people that will just have an amazing career as like voiceovers. And, she might have even been on The Simpsons for a while. I know she was on one of the animated shows. Don't quote me on that. I don't need Maria Bamford's people calling me unless she wants to be on. She'd be a great follow-up. She'd be a great follow-up for Gail. Um, but one of the things that she talks about mental illness all the time. She talks about her anxiety. She talks about that.
Yeah.
And she does it in such a way that it doesn't make you nervous. She literally laughs about it, and she connects with so many people because of it. And
Yeah.
I listened to Gary's album, and I'm like, he had a heavy tone, but it was one of those things. I can't believe I'm saying this. I haven't told anybody this. I sent him an email
Yeah. Oh,
after I
really?
told him. And I
Oh,
said, I had just come out of a really kind of not good place with this as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And I sent him a message, and I said, I think you need to realize that you're cross generational with this.
Mm.
Here I am, I don't have a midlife crisis, I have midlife enlightenment. You battled this your entire life, and you finally decided to face it. You had the right people around you. You realize who's going to stay, who's going to go. I really look up to that for you.
Mm.
And I haven't gotten a response. I don't need one, but I got to tell you,
Yeah.
it was cathartic for me. So I think he also like really presented
Mm-hmm.
like a really cool like outlet for me. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So
And,
Gail, listen, we have to make you a regular.
oh, you're sweet. Anytime, please. How
Really?
long have we been chatting here, you and
Two and a
I?
half hours, give or take.
No, no.
I'll trim out some of it because you got really inappropriate there.
I'm
I
sorry.
should have let you know. Like, I'm going to send you the terms of YouTube so you kind of know what you have to keep on.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Is it personal? 15,
It,
Pisces, Leo rising.
your drumming, does that cross over with your being a medium? Right?
I
Like,
think it does. I think it
does
does.
does like when you're drumming, right? It's very, you get into sort
Mm,
of a trance.
I think everything that you do is a canvas.
Yeah.
So when I was in bands, and it was just brought up to me, I haven't played live in front of people in almost 4 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to kind of change that. Now I've done meditations. So whether I'm doing meditations or I'm doing the creative process of the meditation music, or creating, own originals, or
Yeah.
or writing or teaching or whatever, it's always a canvas. And so every single time I sit down with someone, it's a
Yeah.
canvas. I don't have a formula per se. I have consistent things that will come up, but I don't say, okay, all right, grandmother, check. Okay, check. Oh, tragedy, check.
Yeah.
That's not how I work. It's more of like, oh, this is what this person needs in front of me. This is where I'm supposed to go. This is the canvas of Gail. Where does what picture does Gail need to see?
Yeah.
And when it comes to music, I mean, the thing that I really kind of recognized, I'll call it my Gary Goldman moment here, moving forward, where I had that moment where I said, oh my gosh, I got to redo this whole thing. It's not working for me. I really went within. I really kind of picked it apart. I kept my circle super tight,
Yeah.
super trusted.
Yeah.
And and still made mistakes within that, but then I got discerning and said, this is what's going to fly. This isn't what's going to fly.
Yeah.
And was really quick with it, where once upon a time I would have let it in there and create more anxiety and create more dissatisfaction. But it brought me to a place where I could focus, where I could bring in what I needed to. And I think that's really important, that you create a sanctuary when you get creative. Like even the space, it was a no-brainer for me. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a space on this side of the office, and on this, and no, it's all one thing. I'm in one spot. I got all my music crap all over the place.
Oh, terrible.
I'm turning the other space into a healing sound, sound healing room, and that sort of thing. And that's the clarity that comes out of that. And it was because I just sat with the creativity of it. And I'm like, what's going to make me more creative? What's going to allow me to kind of flow and channel? I think that's the part. Is it connected? 100%. How it's connected? Well, it's your guess. It's my guess. but I'll tell you, it's super important. It's really important that you don't lose that creative edge. And if it, you become a better painter when you go out and you do your comedy.
Yeah, it's true. They all feed each other.
And
Right.
have you noticed that sometimes you do YouTube videos or you do Facebook Lives or whatever, when you need that moment of like inspiration where you're like, I got a good idea. I can talk about a good idea. That bird is flapping, mother. Like, you're just like, that video cracks me up. It really
Oh,
does.
you
All of
gotta wait, like, because I'm like, oh, you should set everything up and it should be just so, and then I've ruined it, but when it
you
hits
ruin
me,
everything. You really did. Like,
it ruins everything.
you're really good. You're really good at like, I did it right. Oh, Jesus, I just broke that. You're
You have
hysterical.
no idea how true that is.
So listen,
Well, thank
I
you.
know you and I will have different ventures down the road. I know you and I actually talked about, before the pandemic, we actually talked about doing a comedy mediumship show. And I know you have mediumship friends and I know all that stuff. I can't wait to get more connected with those guys, but also, still a bookmark in there. So when we get out of this whole pandemic thing,
Yeah,
sky's the limit.
yeah,
Like, I think that's like, we're
yes,
getting held back and we're like
yeah,
revving the engine. And then when the brakes come off, it'll be like, we're
yeah.
going to go.
Yes, I totally agree. When are we gonna be out of this? Just a quick closing question. We're moving out of it, right? I mean, not with the numbers, but the vaccine.
Listen, I think by this time next year, or whatever that means to you,
Yeah,
we're doing this in, mid-November 2020, but by this time next year, I think not only do we have a strategy and an understanding of like what a pandemic is,
yeah, yeah.
that was as political as I want to be. But I
What's that,
also
we don't have a strategy? I'm sorry.
Well, I also think that where the struggle is going to be is, what is vaccination and why do we use it, and
Yeah.
how effective is it, and how do we mandate it in a free country? You can't. You just can't. You can't give away your principles and go here. And for me, I've done just enough research to understand, like, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I am an anti-stupid.
Mm,
And I'm a big fan of, listen, the highest risk, like, I don't want to call them the people that are on the front lines, the people
yeah,
that are whatever.
yeah,
It's like there's an oscillating thing. I get that they're going to need it. I get that they should have it. The people that are at risk, whatever the case may be, however that's defined. I think for mass public, though,
mm,
to say like you need to have a vaccination card to
mm.
get in places, I think that's a dangerous precedent. I
You're
think that is a
absolutely right.
ridiculously, even, I don't care if public health is the basis.
Right.
We watch, and by the way, we'll make that a show, because I think when you get into I was just asked this,
Yeah.
the connection, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there's so much evidence for you to wake the frig up.
Mm,
And that's actually why your intuition is so important. That's why I want to bring stories like yours, like, your creative process and how funny you are and all this other stuff, because it's really super important that we don't lose that and we keep developing it.
yeah.
Perfect,
This
right?
mass development. And well, I really appreciate you having me on. I'll be on anytime.
Well,
I'd love to
listen,
interview you too.
listen, I mean, this is where it's like, regulars are born, right?
Nice.
So listen, guys, you're going to like and subscribe. That little box is coming up right now. You're going to like and subscribe. You're going to actually see Gail's link just down below. Be sure to subscribe and make sure you get all the fun stuff. Follow us on Facebook. Feel free to start downloading the meditations. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on iTunes. You can find it on Spotify. You can find me any place that'll make you spend money on commerce. I know it's terrible, isn't it? And Gail will keep you posted when she starts making that really cool picture in the back. That will be a print someday.
Yeah.
That will be in the T Brandon Russ Conscious Medium store.
I'm very grateful. Thank you, Brandon.
All right, Gail. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.